What if I told you that somewhere in a concrete vault, buried beneath layers of classified security, lies a single key that can unlock any door in existence, any safe, any prison, any barrier between worlds? Today, we're diving deep into one of the Foundation's most deceptively simple, yet profoundly dangerous artifacts, SCP-005, the Skeleton Key. The SCP Foundation has cataloged thousands of anomalous objects. Some scream in the night, others bend reality itself, but few possess the quiet, terrifying potential of a simple brass key, no bigger than your thumb. SCP-005 doesn't roar like a monster. It doesn't tear through dimensions. It simply opens things, all things. And that, my friends, is what makes it so incredibly dangerous. Let me paint you a picture of what we're dealing with here. Imagine, if you will, a key crafted from what appears to be ordinary brass. Its surface bears the patina of age, weathered, worn smooth by countless hands across untold centuries. The key measures exactly 3.8 inches in length, with intricate engravings along its shaft that seem to shift slightly when observed under different lighting conditions. But here's where things get interesting. The key's bit, the part that actually enters a lock, appears to change shape. Not dramatically, not in ways that would alarm a casual observer. But security footage has captured subtle variations in its profile, as if the key adapts itself to whatever it needs to open. The Foundation's metallurgical analysis has yielded curious results. While the key appears to be brass, spectral analysis reveals trace elements that shouldn't exist in that configuration. Elements that seem to exist in a state of quantum flux, constantly shifting between possible compositions. Now, you might be thinking, it's just a key. How dangerous could it possibly be? Well, that's exactly the kind of thinking that keeps Foundation researchers awake at night. SCP-005's primary anomalous property is elegantly simple and absolutely terrifying. It can open any lock. Any lock. Mechanical locks from the 15th century? Opened instantly. State-of-the-art electronic security systems with 2048-bit encryption? Bypassed as easily as a child's toy box. Biometric scanners that should only respond to specific DNA signatures? The key somehow convinces them to comply. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. SCP-005 doesn't just defeat locks mechanically. It seems to understand the very concept of locked and unlocked on a fundamental level. When inserted into any locking mechanism, reality itself appears to briefly negotiate with the key. Foundation researchers have documented over 3,000 successful tests. Bank vaults dating back to the 1800s. Prototype quantum encryption systems that won't be perfected for another decade. Even theoretical locks that exist only as mathematical concepts have somehow been unlocked by SCP-005. During one particularly disturbing test, Dr. Sarah Chun attempted to place SCP-005 inside a containment box secured with a lock that had no key. The lock was welded shut, with no possible method of opening. When Dr. Chun inserted SCP-005 into the keyhole, the lock simply fell open, as if it had never been locked at all, as if the very idea of being permanently sealed was offensive to the key's existence. But perhaps most chilling of all, SCP-005 has never failed to open a lock. Not once. Not ever. The circumstances surrounding SCP-005's discovery remain classified at the highest levels, but what we do know paints a picture of typical Foundation efficiency and typical human curiosity gone wrong. The key was recovered from an estate sale in New York in 1955. The previous owner, a locksmith named Herbert Gale, had apparently used it for over 30 years without fully understanding its properties. According to his journal, which was recovered alongside the key, Gale believed he had simply found the perfect master key during his apprenticeship. What caught the Foundation's attention wasn't the key itself, but rather a series of police reports filed over 3 decades. Mysterious break-ins, impossible thefts from supposedly impregnable safes, banks and jewelry stores reporting that their most secure vaults had been opened, with no signs of forced entry, no evidence of lock-picking, and no missing keys. The only consistent detail across all these incidents was witness descriptions of an elderly locksmith who always seemed to have exactly the right key for any job. When Foundation agents finally tracked down Herbert Gale, they found him in his workshop, surrounded by hundreds of locks. All of them open. All of them, according to his journal, had been impossible cases brought to him by desperate customers. Safes whose keys had been lost. Antique locks whose mechanisms had seized decades ago. Modern electronic systems that had malfunctioned beyond repair. Gale had opened them all, with a single brass key. The Foundation classified SCP-005 as safe class, not because it's harmless, but because it's predictable. It sits in its containment cell, waiting. It doesn't try to escape. It doesn't call out to people. It simply exists, ready to open whatever lock it encounters. But that predictability is exactly what makes SCP-005 so dangerous. You see, the Foundation doesn't fear SCP-005 because of what it is. They fear it because of what it represents. Unlimited access. The complete bypass of security, privacy, and protection. Consider this. Every door you've ever locked. Every safe where you've stored precious things. Every barrier you've trusted to keep you safe from the world. SCP-005 renders all of it meaningless. But the implications go deeper than simple theft or invasion of privacy. SCP-005 calls into question the very nature of security itself. In a world where this key exists, how can anything truly be kept locked away? The Foundation has theorized that SCP-005 might not actually be opening locks in the traditional sense. Instead, it might be convincing reality that the concept of locked doesn't apply when the key is present. This would explain its ability to bypass electronic and even theoretical locks. It's not picking them. It's making them forget how to be locked. But here's what keeps Foundation administrators up at night. If SCP-005 can open any lock, what about the locks they use to contain other SCPs? During a routine security audit in 1987, Foundation researchers made a horrifying discovery. SCP-005 had been tested on several containment cell locks and had opened every single one, including cells housing Keter-class entities whose release could end civilization as we know it. The test was immediately terminated, and SCP-005's clearance level was elevated to the highest possible classification. Only Level 5 personnel may now authorize any interaction with the key. Because the Foundation realized something terrifying, SCP-005 isn't just a key that opens locks. It's a key that could open everything they work to keep contained. The existence of SCP-005 has forced Foundation researchers to reconsider their understanding of several other anomalous objects. Objects that seemed unrelated suddenly appear to be part of a larger pattern. Consider SCP-914, the Clockworks. This massive mechanical device can refine, improve, or completely transform any object fed into it. When researchers attempted to place a simple door key into SCP-914 on the fine setting, the output was disturbing. The machine produced a key that looked remarkably similar to SCP-005, though analysis revealed it to be non-anomalous. The implications are troubling. Did SCP-914 recognize something about SCP-005's design? Was it attempting to replicate its properties? Then there's SCP-261, the anomalous vending machine that dispenses items from parallel dimensions. On 3 separate occasions, researchers using SCP-005 to open SCP-261's maintenance panel have received items that shouldn't exist. Keys to doors and buildings that were never built. Electronic access cards for security systems that won't be invented for decades. As if SCP-005's presence somehow expanded SCP-261's reach across dimensional boundaries. But perhaps most intriguing is the relationship between SCP-005 and SCP-101, the Infinite Bag. This seemingly bottomless container has produced thousands of random objects over the years. But when Dr. Martinez used SCP-005 to unlock the bag's security clasp, the items that emerged became far less random. Keys. Lots and lots of keys. Keys to famous locks throughout history. Keys to fictional locks from literature. Keys to places that don't exist. It's as if SCP-005's presence awakened something in SCP-101. a recognition of kinship between objects that serve similar purposes across different realities. The Foundation has established a new research protocol called the Access Initiative, designed to study connections between SCPs that relate to opening, entering, or bypassing barriers. SCP-005 sits at the center of this research, not just as a subject of study, but as a tool for understanding how reality responds to the concept of unlimited access. The philosophical implications of SCP-005 extend far beyond its practical applications. In the wrong hands, this key represents the complete breakdown of privacy, security, and personal boundaries. But even in the Foundation's possession, it raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of containment itself. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, the Foundation's lead ethicist, has written extensively about what she calls the skeleton key paradox. She argues that SCP-005's very existence undermines the moral foundation of security. If any lock can be opened, she asks, what gives us the right to lock anything away? This question becomes particularly troubling when applied to the Foundation's mission. They contain dangerous anomalies to protect humanity. But if those anomalies could be released by a single brass key, how secure is that protection, really? There have been 3 documented incidents where junior researchers, unaware of SCP-005's true nature, nearly used it to help with routine maintenance on other SCP containment cells. In each case, they were stopped mere seconds before potentially releasing entities that could have caused global catastrophic events. The Foundation has since implemented the Key Oath protocol. Every employee, regardless of clearance level, must swear that they will never attempt to use SCP-005 without proper authorization. The oath includes specific language acknowledging that curiosity, however innocent, could doom humanity. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of SCP-005 isn't its power, it's how ordinary it looks. How easy it would be to mistake it for any other old key. How simple it would be to slip it into your pocket and walk away, thinking you just picked up a harmless piece of brass. The Foundation has calculated that if SCP-005 were ever lost or stolen, the global economic impact could exceed $50 trillion within the first year. Every bank, every government, every individual who relies on locks for security would become instantly vulnerable. And that's assuming the thief used it only for personal gain. In the hands of a terrorist organization, or a hostile government, or even a well-meaning but naive individual, SCP-005 could bring about the collapse of civilization as we know it. SCP-005 forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth about the world we live in. Our entire society is built on the assumption that some things can be kept secure, that doors can be locked, that secrets can be protected, that barriers, both physical and metaphorical, actually mean something. But what if they don't? The key's existence suggests that security might be nothing more than a collective illusion, a shared agreement that locks work because we believe they work. And if that's true, what happens to trust? What happens to privacy? What happens to the very concept of personal space and individual rights? Foundation sociologists have run computer simulations modeling the social impact of SCP-005's public release. In every scenario, the results are catastrophic, not because of what the key can do, but because of what its existence would mean for human psychology. If everyone knew that any lock could be opened by the right key, would anyone bother locking their doors? Would banks continue to exist? Would governments be able to maintain classified information? Would the concept of private property have any meaning? The answer, according to the simulations, is no. Society would collapse within 18 months, not from external attack, but from the simple loss of faith in the basic security mechanisms that hold civilization together. This is why SCP-005 remains one of the Foundation's most closely guarded secrets. Not because it's the most dangerous anomaly they contain, but because the knowledge of its existence could be more destructive than the object itself. Despite decades of study, fundamental questions about SCP-005 remain unanswered. Questions that keep Foundation researchers working late into the night, searching for understanding. Where did it come from? The craftsmanship suggests human origin, but the properties are clearly beyond current human capability. Was it created by an ancient civilization with lost technology? Is it a remnant from a parallel dimension where the laws of physics work differently? Or is it something else entirely? Something that exists outside our normal understanding of reality? How does it work? The key appears to violate several fundamental principles of physics. It can open electronic locks without generating any electrical signal. It can open combination locks without knowing the combination. It can even open locks that have been theoretically described but never built. The mechanism behind these abilities remains completely mysterious. And perhaps most troubling of all, is there more than one? Herbert Gale's journal references meeting other locksmiths over the years who claimed to have similar tools. Tools that could open any lock. Tools that made their owners incredibly successful and incredibly paranoid. The Foundation has launched Operation Master Key, a worldwide search for other objects with similar properties. So far, they've found 17 keys that display minor anomalous abilities. None as powerful as SCP-005, but all sharing certain characteristics. Similar metal composition, similar age, similar intelligence. What if SCP-005 isn't unique? What if it's part of a set? A collection of keys designed to open different kinds of barriers? Physical barriers, digital barriers, dimensional barriers, barriers between life and death. The implications are staggering. As we reach the end of our exploration into SCP-005, I want to leave you with a thought. A warning, if you will. Power, true power, often comes in the smallest packages. A key that weighs less than 3 ounces could reshape the entire world. Not through force or violence, but simply by existing. By proving that the barriers we trust to protect us are ultimately meaningless. SCP-005 reminds us that the most dangerous anomalies aren't always the ones that roar in the night or tear holes in reality. Sometimes, the most dangerous anomalies are the ones that look completely ordinary. The ones you might pass by without a second glance. The ones that could fit in your pocket and change everything. The Foundation continues to study SCP-005, searching for understanding, preparing for contingencies, and above all, keeping it locked away, secured behind layers of protection that they pray the key cannot bypass. But late at night, in the quiet corridors of Foundation facilities around the world, researchers sometimes wonder, what if SCP-005 doesn't want to escape? What if it's content to sit in its containment cell, waiting patiently for someone to bring it the one lock it was truly meant to open? A lock that leads not to a room or a safe or a door, but to something far more profound. A gateway between worlds. A passage to knowledge that was meant to stay forgotten. A door that should never, ever be opened. What door would you never want to see unlocked? Think about that the next time you turn a key. The mysteries surrounding SCP-005 continue to unfold within the Foundation's classified archives. If you're curious to learn more about the skeleton key and form your own theories about its origins and implications, I encourage you to explore the SCP Foundation Wiki, where you can dive deeper into the documentation surrounding this fascinating and terrifying anomaly. Remember, some doors are locked for a reason. Until next time, stay curious, but stay safe.